and got the skipper's name. His name was Captain Charles Ross Smith, Jr. I'm pretty sure he's deceased now because I was only 17 when I was there, and he was an old gentleman. But we just have completed being in the shipyards in Portsmouth, Virginia, and we were out in NOB in Norfolk. And during that time, we have to go to ship's quarters, which is over in Guantanamo Bay, in Gitmo. And in order to get there, we have to go through the Bermuda Triangle. And at the time when we were going there, we're doing night ops. We're, in other words, practicing on what we're going to be doing and all this other stuff and everything, and bringing on our aircraft and air wing, some of the air wing, not a whole bunch of it, but we were bringing in some birds. And this was in the real early in the morning, like I want to say 1 o'clock, maybe 1:30, somewhere around there. So it was dark. And when you have flight ops, we don't use white lights. We use red lights to protect our eyes. And we're out fueling aircraft, and all of a sudden the whole flight deck just lit up. And what we thought had happened was one of the searchlights on one of the airplanes came on, and but they were shut down. But it was funny. It wasn't coming from up above. It was coming from down below, from the water. And the Independence, as I said, is an aircraft carrier. So it's a pretty big ship. It's over a football field, maybe 3 foot football fields long and about a football field wide. And this light that came out from the bottom just swallowed the whole ship. I mean, it was just all the way around it. But what made this very unique is back then in the 70s, early 70s, the armed forces had nothing in our arsenal that was as fast as what this moved. I mean, after it lit, say maybe about, it seemed like forever, but it wasn't. It just like we were headed south, and then that thing just headed south also, but underwater, real fast, leaving us in the dust, more or less, basically. But as it got further out, then it went up into the sky and then was gone. It just disappeared. And I know we have nothing in our arsenal that's that quick or fast or does anything like that. And, you know, we're all just like in awe, just wondering what the heck happened, you know. And the skipper comes over. I'm pretty sure it was the skipper or the air boss. Somebody came on over the 1MC and told us, it says, gentlemen, what you have just witnessed did not happen. And it says, we're going to be sworn to secrecy because what you've seen didn't exist. It did not happen. So, and this happened in 1973, so I've been keeping it quite that long. And I'm a fan of watching your show. And some of the stuff that I've seen out by the Bermuda Triangle and some of the cases that you have are pretty similar to some of the stuff that I have seen and witnessed. And it just brought back memories. And I just thought maybe you might want to hear it. That's about all I can say right now.
No, that's perfect. Now, I may have a few questions as you as you went through your story. One of the things I want to be clear is about the ship that you served on, and that was the USS Independence. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what class of ship? Yeah. Go ahead.
It's an aircraft carrier. It's CV-62.
CV-62.
Conventional aircraft carrier.
Okay. And what was the typical mission for this vessel?
For our vessel?
Yes. What was your typical?
We gives air support to our troops on the land or wherever. It's just an arsenal of aircraft. At the time, we had F-4s, H-6s, H-7s. We had the Vigilante. We had the Whale. Those type of airplanes. And if need be, we can drop our munitions onto the hot spot and stuff like that.
Okay. And during this time, and you mentioned it earlier, but you were serving on this ship. What was your primary position, and what was your typical duties on the Independence?
I was on night shift. I fueled the aircraft that was on top on the flight deck or in the hangar bay. And at this time, I was on the flight deck, topping off, or I should say, if a bird goes out for a quick spin and it comes back, we go on there and top it off. We always make sure they have a fuel tank of gas. And that's what my job was, me and my crew. I have no idea where my crew is at this time. I'm 60 years old. And the guys that were there on my crew were older than me. So I don't know where they would be or what they're doing, or even if they're alive. I know a couple of them are dead or deceased. But, and I know the skipper of the ship is deceased, along with the XO. You were asking something about the quartermaster. I work on the flight deck. I have nothing to do with the quartermaster up on the wheelhouse where the skipper stays, or the admiral. And I wouldn't have privilege on knowing who would be the quartermaster at the time. I wouldn't have no idea.
No, yeah, and the reason why we ask that is typically if we find the logbook, we have a name that we can at least follow in the logbook, and the quartermaster is typically the first person, or usually the only person entering information other than the officers on deck. So typically that's the person that we look for. And if somebody knows, at the time who the quartermaster was, it just helps us in our research to, pinpoint a logbook. We do have access in the National Archives to the released logbooks, and I believe that this one would fall within those years that they're currently in the archives. So, and trying to recall, and I know it's not easy, but can you remember a rough date? I mean, I know you have 1973. You're pretty sure about 1973, correct?
All I know is it would be somewhere in the summer months or in the warmer months. I would say, June of 73, I would assume. But there again, I'm just assuming because I really don't know the actual date. But we were told not to say anything and to keep this quiet, and we all did, I'm pretty sure. But after the years, it just kind of eats at you after a while. Just, and you have to, you think you're going crazy, And then, like I said, I'm a big fan of your show, and it just brought back some old memories.
So we established, it was a night flight period. You were on deck, you were topping off. What aircraft were you topping off, if you remember?
I believe it was an F-4.
F-4, okay. Yeah, and did the F-4s take off at that point? I mean, I'm assuming you were topping them off. Did they react to this incident? Did they put planes in the air? What was the reaction?
It was really nothing because we weren't ready, suited for that. We weren't in combat mode. The planes we didn't have any ammo on board. We didn't have, and we just barely had fuel. But when we go to carrier calls, we go to Guantanamo Bay in Gitmo, and what we do, we have a gang of gentlemen coming on board, and just we go through all this like battle stations and stuff like this, so we can get certified to go out to sea. That's what it is. But at this particular moment, we're bringing in some of the aircraft. I guess the skipper wanted to make it more realistic, I believe, or the admiral. And ship's company. We're ship's company. The only aircraft that we have that belongs to the ship is a helicopter. It's a searching aircraft. In case somebody gets blown over the side, we can go pick them up. We have about maybe 3 on board the ship that stays with the ship all the time. But we had a squadron of F-4s, like maybe about 2 F-4s, 2 A-6s, and I believe that's all it was. It wasn't a whole squadron. It was just a couple of airplanes, and that was it. So we can do our flight deck firefighting, basically. Doing the rescue, taking people, pilots and stuff out of the cockpit if they're on fire, you know. These are the little drills that we had to do when we were there in Guantanamo Bay. And we would basically walk through it and mimic what we would be doing, and at the same time explaining our actions on what we're doing to show these people, okay, they know what.
One of the things I wanted to pick up on, where I left off a little bit from the recording when it stopped recording, was just the description of the light. Now, you said that the light was just extremely bright, right? Like daylight. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's very bright. What I was saying, like if you was to open your hand flat, okay?
Yeah.
Just your palms, and now get 2 digits, your 2 first fingers, and put them right in the center of your palm. The 2 fingers are representing the aircraft carrier, and the palm is representing the object that was on the water. That's about the best that I could describe on how big the object was.
Fairly large, I'm assuming. So, yeah.
And I'm going to give you the dimensions of our ship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The length of our ship was 1,052 feet. The width is 254 feet wide and 192 feet high. So it's not a little boat.
No, it's not. The Independence was a very large ship, indeed.
Yeah.
One of the last of its kind, really. One of the larger.
Yeah, the flight deck area place is 4.1 acres. So.
Wow, that is a big ship. So yeah, and the object itself just kind of moved off very quickly and actually out of the water and out of at distance. So it just kind of shot off. Is that correct? Can you explain that?
Yeah, when it took off, it just it blinded us. Basically, the light was so bright that it blinded us. We were working at night, but when it started to move, it kind of made us dizzy because we were moving too. But you understand what I'm saying? That because it's moving, it felt weird. But when it took off, it just went very fast. It took off and then went up in the air and gone in a high rate of speed.
Wow.
And I know we don't have anything in our arsenal that fast.
No, and I know at the very end of my recording it didn't catch what it is. Remember, I had you rephrase or just kind of paraphrase what the skipper had said over the intercom. Can you repeat that? What you can remember that the skipper said over the intercom to you guys?
Yes, he said, "Gentlemen, what we have just witnessed did not happen." And let's see. It did not happen. And we were sworn to secrecy. In other words, we couldn't say anything because it never happened. So basically something like that in that sense.
Right. And did you guys ever talk about it just at the mess, or did you guys just ever discuss what happened?
The only time I talked about it was we'd be out in the flight deck looking airplane, looking around, and somebody would make the comment, "Just keep looking around like that, we're going to find another one of them things." kind of a joke, but we never did. It just happened that one time, and we just kind of put it out of our heads. We kind of thought we were going nuts. It was weird.
And that's kind of good. Kind of segues into my other question. Well, actually, two questions. One, why do you believe that the officers on deck or on the ship, consider this a situation of secrecy or a situation of classification? Why do you think they wanted to tell you guys that this is a situation that you shouldn't be talking about? I mean, what's the reasoning for the secrecy on their part? Do you have any recollection or any kind of idea?
Well, you got to think of what was going on at the time. We had the Vietnam War, and right after we got done with our thing there in Guantanamo Bay, we were supposed to go to Vietnam, but a week before we were to deploy to Vietnam, our orders had changed and we went to the Black Sea. Now, what was going on at the Black Sea at that time? It was the Cold War. It's when Russia and Iraq were going to try and start World War III thing. And what we did, we were one of the carriers that got deployed out there. There was about, I think, 4 or 5 of us aircraft carrier groups that was out there in the Black Sea at that time for a show of force. And basically all we did was flew around the clock for 128 days straight, nonstop, day and night. And the only thing I can think of was why they might have said that. It was maybe we were hoping that we invented something that did move that fast, but I don't think so.
Now, the question that the public often asks, especially when I present these types of cases to them, they say, well, why are they keeping it secret? Why did they decide not to talk about it? Well, obviously you're talking about it now, but I mean, at the time, why the secrecy? Why are people keeping it, like yourself, at the time, we're not talking to anybody about it? What was your overall sense? Why were you keeping your mouth shut, so to speak?
Well, the generation of people back then was a lot different. And the arsenal that we had, we kept it quiet. And we didn't want any of our secrets being, since we were getting ready to go to our enemy. And then not only that, going to Guantanamo, that's another enemy, Cuba, at that time. That was, so things were different back then. And if you think about it, we were engaged with the Vietnam War. So things and times were different. Everything that happened at sea, we were told to be hush-hush. We couldn't even say anything about our ship either. Anything we did, anywhere we were going, we couldn't say anything. Like, talking to you, it just seems funny as hell,
Yeah.
And I've been quiet all these years, and then for me to do this is just, I don't know, maybe I was, like my wife said, well, maybe I needed to talk to somebody about it,
What do you think it was? In your opinion, when you were there, your thoughts, what do you think it is?
At the time, I don't know, but after seeing your program, I'll probably have an idea of what it might have been. Like a USO. But after watching your shows and seeing some of the characteristics and the way it's acted and all, that it has to be that. That's my educated guess, but I have no idea.